Good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining me today. It's so very good to see you. And my name is Mark Dolfini of Strategic Boardroom. I am a strategist, and it's so very good to be here. Thank you for your patience. I was running just a couple minutes behind today, and I wanted to make sure I had a I had an issue with my slide, and it was bugging me, and I had to kind of obsess about it because I want to make sure you guys are getting the best presentation for me. So for those of you who have not, man, you guys are burning up the chat already. Good grief. It's good to see you all. Hello. I'm sorry. I didn't want to say it wrong. Carolina. Very good. Hello, Carolina. Briss. It's good to see you. Hello, Kay. Welcome. Marcus. Hello, Marcus Hess. Carolina. Good afternoon again. Dartasha. Nice to meet you. Hello, Walter. Hello, Edwald. Edwald. Very good. Stephanie, nice to meet you, and Alexander. Alexander, I feel like we were here yesterday, I believe, right? Hello, Robin. Oh yeah, Robin. Hello. It's good to see you both. Glad that you guys could be back here. Oh, that's me. All right. You don't care about my stuff. Let's see here. Take your time. Yeah, thank you. I mentioned I was going to be a few minutes. Carolina, you're from London and you're a student. Yeah. So I would ask if for you guys want to let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. So Carolina, good for you for being a student and injecting yourself into stuff like this. I will tell you, when I was a student at Purdue 1,000 years ago, and I really took my education very seriously. So if I if I learned or if I was exposed to a topic that I didn't know enough about, and I would set aside, and keep in mind this is the days before Google, and like you're like, good God, how long ago was this? It really was. It was the internet was very much a new thing, but before Google came along, there was Yahoo search and things like that. But the looking for other information was still pretty tricky. But I would always make a note to the side to like, hey, I heard about this topic or this idea or this concept. I want to unpack it a little bit more. So good for you for doing that and expanding your education. You are currently unemployed, Marcus. Excellent. Gives you an opportunity to learn, right? Good for you for being here. I'm glad that you are here from Ohio. I'm your neighbor to the west. I live in Indiana, so it's good that you are here, Marcus. Hello, Stephanie is from Colorado. Stephanie, different Stephanie. You live in Florida and have a virtual paralegal business. Excellent. I'm sorry. These are such small words. Iola. Very good. From Nigeria. Welcome from Nigeria. Amy is saying hello. Good to see you. Sajith from Sri Lanka. Man, we are getting all time zones here tonight. Sri Lanka. It is very late there. It's like what, 4 in the morning there? Wow. Okay. Buyo, it's good to see you. Or Bui, I'm sorry. I'm not sure how you say your name. Hello, it's good to see you. Stefan from Peachtree Corners, Georgia. Man, there's a lot of folks here today. Yes. Yeah, that is. I thought that was you from yesterday. Really good to see you again, Alexander. Edwald, yes, again saying hello. Stefan or Steven, I'm a travel piano teacher and small business owner. Excellent. Very good, Stephen. We're going to be talking about some of that stuff today, but this is really more how it plugs into you as a small business owner. Boy's from Nebraska, and I currently work in nursing and developmental disabilities. Okay, very good. I'm glad to have you here. Laura from North Carolina, and you are in real estate. Laura, my background's in real estate, so I actually have a broker's license here in Indiana, and it's probably the same for you in North Carolina, though not every state is similar, but you have to have a broker's license to be a property manager. So I do residential property management, and that's where most of my money comes from, is in real estate. So I get to do stuff like this and not get my phone blown up all the time. So good to have you here, Laura. Iowa Swim Academy. You do one-to-one backyard swimming lessons. I'm betting you're not doing it right now though, because it's like a degree outside. So probably have to chop through the ice to get there. But and Connection Mavens, fiber internet. Excellent. Very good, Amy. Home care. Kay, I'm sorry. I am a home care agency founder. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Kay. Jaza. I apologize if I'm getting these names wrong. My name is Jaza, pronounced Jayiza. Okay, very good. From London. Thank you. Thank you for the phonetics on that. From London, graduated from an accounting and finance training, accountant, and also now law student. Excellent. So, Jayiza, my background is in accounting. That's my undergrad in from Purdue University in accounting and finance, and worked in that field for a while. And but we're not going to be talking about stuff like that today. What I want to do is make sure that you guys are understanding basic finance, balance sheet, and income statement. So some of this is going to be a little bit of a review for you, probably a very basic review. But I'm going to get to the end on the other side where there's more advanced concepts, that stuff that CFOs use. So all of this stuff is going to be really laid out for all of you, nice and easy. Getting to the end here. You CO here. Oh, Colorado, right. And organizational consultant and leadership coach with my consulting company. Excellent. Cultivating Joy Consulting. Fantastic. So Stephanie, I'm actually in school now, getting my PhD in organizational psychology. So what you do is right up my alley. I love that stuff. I just love what you're doing. I don't work quite in the same space as you do. I work as a strategist, but I do use the tools from some of the stuff that you use in your space. So that's fantastic. I love that. Yes, early morning in Sri Lanka. It's got to be really early, like 4 a.m. Marcus, my first event. I appreciate the engagement, chat, and host. Yep, absolutely. And we are almost to the bottom. Yes, seasonal swim lessons. Yeah, it would have to be in Iowa. All right, Alex, Alexander saying, business efficiency specialist. Specifically, I specialize in sales efficiency, implement systems that help owners increase their high quality leads up to 55%, while cutting costs nearly a third, maximizing ROI in sales. And one of the things I talk about in sales is, I'm looking this from the perspective of marketing, is RMI, return on marketing investment. But we are also expanding our ecosystem in risk management and operations to provide a complete friction-free business model. Now I'm on a mission to bring these big company tools to businesses that want to grow without the 24/7 burnout. I love that. Really, really good stuff. Thank you all, and I appreciate your patience. I know we're kind of a few minutes into this already, like, oh my gosh, when are we actually going to get started? We are starting right now. Now, just a couple of quick things. First of all, don't stop the engagement. I love that. That's the sort of stuff that fires me up. And we've got a number of people here. We got a couple dozen people on the call, and that will drop off. And I know before you have to head out, before you maybe have to go do some other things, I just want to let you know that if you signed up for this on Eventbrite, you will be getting a replay emailed to you. Okay, and that'll be coming from me. So it's not from some automation bot or anything like that. It's coming from me. So I just want to let you know, if you do have to hop off, I totally get it. I understand that this is you've got other life things for sure, right? Some of you may be putting kids to bed. Some of you may be trying to get to bed. Some of you may be, work in the middle of your work day. So I totally understand that. Just let you know that's totally fine. You will be getting a replay. If someone asks, by the way, just respond back to that for me. If you see someone like, hey, we'll be getting a replay, that really helps me out too. The other thing is, keep your questions coming. Now, the thing is, if you're going to say something, I do have natural breakpoints in here. If you're going to ask me something, don't just type in, hey, could you repeat that? Because I'm going to I'll get to that question in about 3 minutes, and I have no context of what you're talking about. So just keep in mind that when I'm going to be coming back to this, make sure you're asking your questions really specifically so I can answer those in your context. That's why I give a full 90 minutes for this, so I can keep engaged with you guys, because I do want this to be relevant for you. This might be the only interaction we have. So I just want to make sure that you guys know that. Rare breed. Oh, this is Jewel here. Oh, hey, Jewel. Good to see you. And Marcus, that's fantastic. Going the extra mile? Absolutely. It's good. It's what I love and enjoy to do. I really enjoy the interaction. And through COVID, this is what kept me alive. Like, I need people, I need contact, and I love it. All right. So one other thing I'm going to ask you guys to do, guys and gals, is try not to multitask, right? We're trying to train our brains for not coming up with all these different things that are going to allow us to distract us in what's going on with our lives. And I get it. Some of you are just those serial idea people, those serial entrepreneurs where every time you get out of the shower, you have a new idea. Am I right? Okay. You're like, oh my gosh, does he know me that well? Yes, because I am just like one of you. I have lots of ideas all the time. But here's the thing. Last year was one of my most productive years I probably have had in my life. I read 42 books, read 42 books. I wrote and published 5 books. And in addition, I also started a PhD program in organizational psychology, in addition to living a pretty full life with my bride and with my family. We have a 3-year-old daughter. I'm 53 years old. And you're like, wow, you did not do the math on that, Mark. No, I did not. But the thing is, this is what this is what full focus allows you to do. And this is what I want you to train. So for the next hour, just try to stay plugged in so you can train your brain to be more concentrating and be more focused. All right. So let's get started to this. So try not to multitask as much as you possibly can prevent that. So here's what we're going to get. We're going to get into the agenda for today. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about the Viper framework, which is the main framework that I've written about in the Time Wealthy Advantage. That's the book that I wrote about and published in May. I'll get into that in just a little bit, but not really unpack it all that much. That's stuff that I do for other things, because we're really going to be focusing on the financial literacy piece today. We're talking about the 4 core functions of business. We're going to be talking about financial statements, about balance sheet, P&L, things like that. Then we're going to be talking about things like, where's all my cash? And a phenomenon known as growing broke. Yes, you can grow your business and you can be growing it right into driving it off a cliff. So that's what we're going to be talking about, is growing broke and how to prevent that, and then different resources that you guys can have. So if some of you are just starting out, I get it. Before I go on to that, some of you are just starting out and you might be thinking, okay, well, I want to scale, right? Or I want to get to the next level, or I just want to bring in more customers and learn how. And some of you may just want a day off once in a while. Some of you just might want to get paid once in a while rather than just pouring all of your money back into your business, right? Well, this is what we're going to be talking about today. So hang in there and we are going to get to that. Marcy is saying, hello, you're from Kenya. Very good. Glad you could join us, Marcy. Marcy, let us know what kind of business that you're in. And Andressa, hello everyone, I'm Andressa, financial representative at FHFG. I work with business owners who are great at what they do, but want more clarity around where their money actually goes. Excited to learn and connect today. Thanks, Coach, for hosting this section. Excellent. It is my true pleasure. So really quick, I'm actually going to do this now because I have quite a few people on the call, and I usually kind of just going to call a quick audible. I know some of you are going to probably have to hop off, and only because I know some of you have messaged me already, which is totally fine. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to share this because sometimes you want to reach out to me afterwards. I do have a school community, which doesn't cost you anything to be part of just the community if that's what you're wanting. So I'm just going to put that up in the link now if you are wanting to join that. But again, try not to multitask. If you want to click it, say yes, click it, and then come back, but don't mess around on that. So I'm just going to put that in there now just because I don't want anybody, some of you I know you're going to have to hop off and do that, because there's quite a few people that are joining this, which is honestly, this is the highest attendance I've had on this one, I think, ever. So give yourselves a round of applause. It's good to have you all here. All right. So these are all my books. And the reason I'm demonstrating and showing you what all these books are is there's different some of these things around real estate. I know there's a couple of real estate folks on here. That one on the top left, it's called The Time Wealthy Investor. That was my first book. I'm really proud of that. That's actually out of print now, and all of the books down on the bottom that are laying on the table are the ones that are in print. In all styles and lengths. I'm not putting this up there so you guys go buy them. That's not the point of this. But this book right here was my last main book, right? This is my main work here called The Time Wealthy Advantage. And that's the book that I published in May. And this is the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's very relevant to what we're going to be talking about today. And a lot of the stuff we're talking about today is actually in this book. So if you're looking for something a little bit more than what today is, go buy the book. Probably the best way is to go and buy it on Amazon if you want it. If you live outside the United States, if you live inside the United States, just go to my website, strategicboardroom.com, and you can get it there. But I am not here to sell that. I really am not. I just want to make sure that you knew, if you need the what's next, that could be part of it. All right, so let's get to the Viper framework. The Viper framework is where we're really going to get started here. So the Viper methodology is what I wrote about in the Time Wealthy Advantage, and this is a framework from top down on how to build a business. Now listen, for those of you who are not entrepreneurs or you're not business owners, I know some of you have mentioned that you work, like Andressa mentioned, You work at FHFG. Okay. Maybe that's not your business, but here, this doesn't relieve you of responsibility for doing this other stuff for yourself. So this will still be very relevant to you. So the Viper framework it's an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. Vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. And it's a top-down, very strategic approach to managing your life and managing your business. It's about how you are taking leadership and taking agency of your own life. That sounds extremely sexy to me. I don't know about you, but that is the sort of stuff that really winds my clock, because me taking agency for me and the stuff that I want, that's what this is about. Okay, so does that sound good to you guys? Say, yes, I love taking agency of my own life. Let me know in the comments, because that's really important. It's important to me. So Marcy mentions that she's an entrepreneur, sells African attire here in Kenya. Glad to be here. It's a new business started in December last year, hoping it to grow. Excellent. And you understanding this side of the business, the financial piece of the business, is a key component. We're going to talk about that when we get to the 4 core functions of business. So hang in there for just a little bit. All right, so let's get to vision first and foremost. Vision has 2 components. Vision has 2 components. There is a personal vision, and then there's a business vision. Now, the personal vision piece, and you might be thinking, wait a minute, hold on. Isn't this about finances? Isn't this about business stuff? Yes. But what's the business supposed to do? The business exists to serve you, right? Andres is saying yes. Marcus is saying absolutely, right? These are important considerations, right? Like those are the sorts of things they're answering a previous question. But the business exists to serve you. So that's why I'm saying, from a personal vision perspective, I want you to think about this from, okay, cool. The personal vision really doesn't have anything to do with business whatsoever. It's going to ask you just a very general question of, where do you want to go? Where do you, Marcus, want to go in life? Marcy, where do you want to go in life? Andressa, where do you want to go in life? Right? And start thinking about it from that perspective. And it's like, if you woke up with, 30 million units of whatever in your bank account tomorrow, right? Or whatever's a lot of money in your currency. Obviously, you guys have seen, we have people literally all over the globe here, from Sri Lanka to South Africa, to the United States, to, the UK. There's people all over the world watching this, which is super, super humbling. But whatever's a lot of money for you, what would your day-to-day life look like if you woke up with that in your bank account tomorrow? Now, you're still not so much where you wouldn't have to be a good steward of your money, but enough to where you could say, hey, look, I don't necessarily have to get up and have my life defined by income generation anymore. Right? Have you ever been to a networking event where someone asks you, hey, so what is it you do? Right? Now, all of a sudden, my job description becomes a life description. Does that make sense? And I'm not about that. Like, people ask me what it is that I do. I'm like, well, that depends on the context. Because an hour ago, I was a T-Rex. Ask my 3-year-old daughter. I've learned the interesting thing about this, and I don't know about you guys, I'm in my 50s. But when I was a kid, there was like 4 main dinosaurs, right? There was like Brontosaurus, T-Rex, Triceratops, and Pterodactyl, right? Now there's like dozens and hundreds of them, like a Parasaurolophus. Parasaurolophus, are you kidding me? That's really a dinosaur? Yeah, it really is a dinosaur, a Parasaurolophus. Look it up. It's a dinosaur with a weird thing on the back of its head. I don't know. She knows how to say it, though. She knows all these different things. But that, to me, is I would love to identify with myself more as that. Like, I was literally a T-Rex for my 3-year-old daughter, an hour ago. Okay. But how would you define your life if it wasn't defined by income generation? Where do you want to go? Next, now the business vision. The business vision, it's not that the business vision is irrelevant. It just can't come first, right? Now it's going to ask you, how are you going to get there? How are you going to get there? And that's what the business vision is going to deliver, that personal vision for you. And here's the interesting thing, is the danger in creating a business vision without ever giving any sort of any thought to a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you, that's an empty well that never gets filled up. I have literally sat in seminars and and just all these different places and masterminds, sitting next to people that are making 6 and 7 figures per month net, and they were miserable in their life. So I'm just telling you, spend a little bit of time developing that personal vision. Here's just a couple things, and then I promise we're going to put the fries in the bag and move on from this. But the personal vision perspective, consider something like a 100th birthday speech. You're turning 100 years old, okay? and you're turning 100 years old. What would who would you want to be at your 100th birthday party? What would you say? Right? What would be the things what would be the message that you would want people to carry outside the room? And maybe 100 years, so some of you might be in your 20s, like, dude, I'm 20. Like, I can't think of me being 100. Okay. All right, fine. But think about the next milestone for you. Maybe that's when one of your children turns 10, or one of your children turns 18 and leaves high school, or maybe when you turn 30. Right? Think about the next major milestone for you if a 100th birthday speech is too far. Think about things that you would look forward to. What would that speech look like? Okay? So again, we're going to move on from personal vision. The rest of the stuff we're going to be talking about here today is related to business. Now, the second thing here is business vision. Now, the business vision exists to serve the personal vision, right? So I promise we're going to get to the financial piece here in just a hot second, but I have to give you some context in terms of why that makes a difference. Because the 3 C's of business vision are very, very relevant to the growth of your company. They're extremely relevant to the growth of your company. If you don't have these things well-defined and well-developed, you're going to struggle. Every single time I have been hired and brought into an organization, and I show up at the organization, whether virtually or physically, and I show up at the organization and they don't have one of these 3, they're loose in one or more of these 3 C areas, these areas, there's problems in the organization, and it's either they're not as profitable as they could be, they're having trouble attracting clients, they've got a bad company culture, and everyone's fighting or disagreeing, right? That's the problem. So the 3 C's of business vision will help define that. And those 3 C's are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, client avatar. Give me just a couple minutes to give you some context in terms of why this matters. So the core purpose of your business specifically says, okay, great. What business are you in and what problems do you solve? And it's really important that you be very, very specific, like Marcus, Sajith, Hadressa, Marcy. What is the specifics that you do in your business? Don't tell me, well, I'm in retail. It tells me nothing, right? Specifically, what is it that you do and what problems do you specifically solve for your client avatar? We're going to get to client avatar here in a second. The more specific that you can be allows you to be much more specific in your marketing, allows you to be much more specific in your sales, and you start to occupy the mental real estate of the individuals who want to come to you. So if you're not clear in your core purpose, guess what? It doesn't magically get more clear when it leaves your mouth to their ears. If anything, it gets less clear. So you've got to be really, really, really clear about what do you do specifically and almost obnoxious about what you won't do. That makes sense? Okay. So core purpose is really, really important. So Sajith is inviting me to Sri Lanka. It's a wonderful place. I actually have heard it is a beautiful place to be. The closest I ever got in the Marine Corps was when I flew to Diego Garcia. Which is a little dot in the Indian Ocean, but I do love that part of the world. Thank you for the invitation. Iola, core purpose, core values. Right, that's exactly right. So the next one, core purpose, is specifically what business are you in and what problems do you specifically solve. Now let's talk about core values. Core values is what matters to you about this business and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business. This is important. And here's the interesting thing. I know people are like, well, isn't this a financial thing? Yes, but here's the problem, is that companies that do not define their core values generally have a weak company culture. And a company culture and a company brand are inextricably linked. You cannot get away from that. And if you want to have a profitable company, and if you ever want to sell a company, you are going to get much more for that company when you have a really solid company culture, because the company culture is also what's going to help develop your company brand. And your company brand is what is experienced by your customers, right? So I want you to take the time to define what those core values could be. And those core values come from you, right? So Andressa, Marcy, Marcus, there's Amy, Sajith, Stephanie, there's core values that matter to you. And you may have values. We all have values. We all have things that we value in our life. I value peanut M&Ms, but I'm not going to go to war over peanut M&Ms. But someone threatens my family, yeah, I'm going to war, right? Like that's a problem, because that is enough. It's such a value that I'm willing to get up off the couch to act on it. right? That's how you know something's a core value. And that is what should be what should help define your business. So what are some things that really matter to you so much that you're willing to act on them? It might be something that you experienced from a previous boss or manager. Like, man, they were just never, they always lied to me. Or they were never in integrity. They said one thing and they did another. Or they just had really poor character. They just were not a good person, right? Something along those lines, right? Or think about relationships in the past. That is what's going to help determine and define what your core values are. Bring those into your company and you will have a very solid company culture. And here's the danger. And before I wrap that up, your company culture will be defined. If you don't define it, it will be defined. And it's going to end up being defined by the strongest personality that's in the room. So you better always hope that you're the one that's always in the room or you never leave. And that's not a great place to be. All right. So so we talked about core purpose. We talked about core values. Now let's talk about your client avatar. Now this is really important because this is what's going to be driving the sales in your organization. Your sales are what's going to show up on your income statement, in your financial statement. So we're going to be talking about that here in just a few minutes. But your client avatar is who specifically and ideally do you want to serve, and what are their geographics, their demographics, and their psychographics? It's really important that you be really specific about this. And think about this from the terms of geographics of where they are, the demographics of who they are, like are they married, are they single, are they, whatever. Are they young? Are they old? Are they poor? Are they rich? Whatever, who they are. And then finally, psychographics is how they think and how they buy. That's going to be a main determinant for how effective your marketing dollars are. And that's going to be a real key thing that we're going to be talking about when we talk about percentage of sales method. Percentage of sales method is going to be really important when we bring that up in the financial, the financial statement on the income statement, or the financial the financial piece called on the income statement. So you'll see that here in just a little bit. So when you're defining your psychographics, I want you to think of ALEA, your attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. That's a way you define someone's psychographics. What is their attitudes on things? Like, what's their attitude towards education? What's their attitudes towards adoption of new technology? What's their, do they read? Right? What's their lifestyle like? Are they young and jet setting, or are they older and kind of homebodies? Or are they younger and kind of homebodies, right? I know plenty of people who are like, they're in their mid-20s and they think nothing more than just love putting on a pair of sweatpants and hanging out at home, right? Whatever their lifestyle is up to them. What interests do they have? Do they like American football or do they like World Cup? Either way, right? Do they like NASCAR or Formula One? Either way is really important for you to know this. And then what are their aspirations and their goals? If you know their goals, you're much more likely to be able to reach them. Does that make sense? And that's also going to be really indicative in terms of how efficient your marketing dollars are in tracking that in your financial statements. So these are all things that are really, really important. So these are the 3 C's of business vision: core purpose, core values, and client avatar. And that wraps up the vision piece. Infrastructure is just the bones of the business. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want to get to the financial piece. But here's the thing is the infrastructure is the bones of the business, right? It's the desks, the chairs, the software, the computers, the websites, and things like that. And here's the thing. The reason is because it's so important. It's such an important part it's such an important part of the business. The reason that Viper, or the reason that infrastructure comes next is, let's say, for example, that let's say Amy, okay? Amy, Amy, Kay, Sajid, let's say it's their vision to lay on the beach in Spain for 2 months out of the year, drinking sangria and rubbing cocoa butter on their belly. Okay? Let's say that that's their vision. If they build an infrastructure that's going to require them to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a pretty bad experience for them when they're trying to lay on the beach rubbing cocoa butter in their belly while they're drinking sangria, right? That's why vision comes first. Vision is that main circuit breaker. First personal and then business, okay? So I want you to think of why infrastructure comes next. It is a very critical component, but I just want to make sure you understand why that comes next. So we talked infrastructure. Now we're going to talk about process. Process is how you do stuff, okay? It's really pretty straightforward, and it has 2 components. It has tactical process and it has strategic process. when you're talking about tactical process, you're talking about the day-to-day things, right? Tactical is how you do stuff, your standard operating procedures, your checklists, your day-to-day activities, right? How you answer the phone, how you do stuff like that, right? Your strategic planning is it's going to involve three main areas. It's your people, your purpose, and your promotion. Your strategic planning is like, okay, cool. We built this battleship, we built this warship, and now we're going to take it out of the harbor, right? And you need to consider the people that you're going to need, who you're going to be directing it towards, what's the purpose of the strategic plan, and how are you going to promote it externally and internally. And all of this stuff takes important financial considerations. The next piece of the Viper framework is execution. And it was a great quote by General George S. Patton: "A good plan violently executed now is far better than the perfect plan executed next week." The reason for this is because I love y'all as like your beautiful entrepreneurial selves. And man, no one has dropped off this call. That is amazing. Iola, Sajith, Kay, Andressa, Amy, like the reality is I know some of you really, really well, and I've never met you before, but I know like you probably have a to-do list of 37 items that you're going to do today. Ask me how I know, because that was me for a really long time. And the reason why the Viper framework has E as execution is because most plans that you put together fall apart in execution. And part of that problem, probably the main problem, is that many of us, and if I had three hands, I'd put them all up, that I have too many priorities. And having too many priorities has the same impact as having none. So I'm just telling you, the way to get around that is to come up with a daily 5. And the daily 5 are up to 5 highly specific actions that you can take that are going to move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan, one of the two. Okay. So I know we're getting off topic here a little bit, so I'm not going to spend more time on that, but I just want to make sure that for you to be much more effective, you got to be able to whittle those things down to the really core needle moving activities, the needle moving activities. I'm not talking about check voicemail, check email. Today, this right now is part of my daily 5. And actually, when I'm operating at my really very best, it's 3, my daily 3. And that's how I'm able to get so many things done and so many things accomplished. The last piece of the Viper framework is reporting, and that's when you're tracking your lead metrics and your lag metrics. This is straightforward. Lead metrics are your actions and activities. Your lag metrics are the results of those actions and activities. If you don't like the results you're getting, you just change your actions and activities. All right, so let's move on from the Viper framework. I know I've got some questions in here. Sajith, yep, someone already answered. Oh, crud. Hang on one second, guys. I'm having a... Give me 1 second. Okay, I am really sorry because I didn't realize that I had a circuit breaker blow, and that would have shut my computer off. Okay, sorry, I had to hop off there for a second. Okay, so yes, Sajid, so you will be getting a replay of that. And Kay, thank you for covering for me. All right, so Andressa, one of my one of my core values is access to knowledge. Once I learned I have a powerful financial strategies can be in protecting families, businesses, and futures. It felt unfair to keep that information to myself. Excellent. I believe people deserve clarity, not confusion, when it comes to their money. The way I help the world is by sharing what I know, educating others, and helping them to make confident decisions that reduce stress and create long-term stability, regardless of that, if that will land me business or not. That is fantastic, Andressa. And I love that that's part of a core value for you, because for me, education is the silver bullet. That's why I do these things. I don't charge money for them on purpose, because I want to get this information in the hands of as many people as possible. And here's the interesting thing, guys and gals. The market judges you by your samples. Think about that. The market judges you by what you give away for free. And if you kind of hold all that stuff close to the vest and you're like, well, you got to buy in order for you to know, sometimes it's just too much risk. So if you're like, yeah, but I don't want to give away my secret sauce, then come up with more recipes. I'm telling you, I held stuff way close to the vest for a really long time, and I really struggled in my sales. If you really want to I mean, do stuff like this, hold webinars, do stuff like this, and really get out there and demonstrate to people what it is that you know. And I promise you, when you're, especially if you're trying to struggle and trying to grow your organization, I'm telling you, volume fixes a lot of things when it comes to lead generation. All right. So really good, Andressa. Thank you for sharing that with us. Let's see, Edwald, 3 C's, core value. Will some values be less valuable for profits? Will you stick to personal values to pivot to make business sustainable? Only with cash flow income stream, the business survives. Yes. So the answer is yes. And the reason why, let me leave that up because that's a really, really good question. There will be things that I will do that aren't as valuable as if I was doing something else. But here's the problem. If you go against your core values, you're going to wind up with a job or a business that you hate. And that's not sustainable. So I'm just saying, and I'll give you a quick example. I worked as so as you know, many of you know, my background's in accounting. I already mentioned that. And I worked for a company that was awful. Like they were just literally awful. They were awful people. And I loved the work, though I was really, really good at the work, but I'm being vague on purpose because I don't need that drama. But every Sunday, like clockwork, it'd be around 4:00, 4:30. I would get this creeping, awful, dreadful feeling that I had to go back to that place the next day. And I absolutely hated it. So, and I think it was even Steve Jobs that had said, if every morning I look up in the mirror and I don't like what I do and I have too many of those moments, I really have to reevaluate what it is that I'm doing. So I'm just telling you, core values is something that you can't just put aside in the name of profits. That's how you wind up with businesses that you're like, yeah, you might be making a ton of money, but at what cost? So I'm just telling you, like for me, that I would not get back into that. So it's a really, really good question. Well, thank you for bringing that up. Amy said, yes, please. You have good manners, Amy. I don't know what you mean. Good point. I agree, Edwald. I don't know what I said but that was a good point. Let's see. Edwald answered my question also pretty much. Yep. Very good. Edwald, you said thank you. Excellent. And then I'm a part-time, is it loctician in Croydon and will be 1 year this month. Is it loctician? I'm not sure what that is. I don't know. I apologize. If you can maybe explain that. Great story. Thanks for sharing. Very recognizable. Yeah, it was horrific. I hated that. I said horrific, not terrific. The day you dread the drive to work is the day you shouldn't be working there. Yep, absolutely, Marcus. Very good. And then finally, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Lactician fixes hair. Okay. I apologize. I don't know that I've ever heard that word, and I'm a kind of a word nerd. Huh. Into locks. Oh, that makes more sense. Okay. I did not, and I'm a word nerd. I mean, this is why I love this. I love you guys. You are educating me, and I just walked into that. That is a new word for me. Did not know that was a thing. Well, thank you. All right, so let's keep moving. We've got the first part of that, which we talked about, the Viper framework. Let's get to the 4 core functions, because this is going to walk us directly into the last piece, which is the financial statements. Okay, so the 4 core functions of business, they are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey happens in this order. First, lead gen, they experience your company and experience you through your lead generation. Then it's not like a hard stop. It actually kind of evolves into the sales conversation. Yeah, sure, there's definitely a threshold, but it should be one natural thing, symbiotic relationship from one to the next. So the sales conversation, if the lead generation conversation opens the loop and opens the question for them, the sales conversation closes that loop, and it allows for fulfillment and the operational function to take over. And then finally is the accounting function, right? So let's walk through these just real quick. The lead generation function, everything needs to support your lead generation function, because the reality is this: you can have the best, most efficient business. You can be a paragon of virtue. Your sales technique's so dialed in that you can sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. And that is really, really important to remember because yes, you may be making money hand over fist, but if that money is not supporting your lead generation function and coming back in, you will starve. Okay. So the reality is you can never, ever, ever, ever take your foot off the gas when it comes to your lead generation function. You just can't. Don't get lazy on that because the minute you do is the minute you get caught flat-footed and your business is at risk. When you get to the sales function, this continues the conversation that's started by the lead generation function. So again, it understands that effective selling is about finding solutions, not punching birthday cake into people's mouth, right? Like it's like, it's birthday cake. You're like, yeah, but it's birthday cake. Like that's not nice, right? Like holding people's heads underwater until they say yes is not a great way to sell. So I want you to understand that the sales conversation is just about finding solutions for whatever it is that they have, and that aligns with your what? It should align with your core purpose. Should align with your core purpose. And that is where you're coming up with those offers. So the operations function, if you're going to get stuck, generally you're going to get stuck in the operational function. And it's generally, if you're a roofer, you get stuck putting on roofs. If you're a plumber, you get stuck doing the plumbing. If you're a website person, you get stuck doing the websites, right? Whatever it is. Okay. Generally, that's where people get stuck. If you're going to ignore something, you're going to ignore the accounting. And that's just the reality. And I have said these words. Well, I've got more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing okay. And I'm just telling you that I've said those words and I have a degree in accounting, but I'm telling you, I'm the least qualified person to do it because I know I will not do my own accounting. So I just want you to think of why this is so important, because the accounting function is what collects the money. I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty good to me. The accounting function pays the bills. And I don't know about you, but I'm not about getting collection calls all the time. So that's good for me. It tracks and measures everything that happened. Like, how efficient are my marketing dollars going out? Am I getting more money? And do I have more financial freedom? That sounds important to me. It also forecasts, budgets, and plans for what will happen next. And that's something that we're not going to get into too much today. That's probably something I'm probably going to prepare for an advanced class at some point. But that's where you have pro forma balance sheets and pro forma income statements and things like that. So for those of you maybe putting together business plans, that's really important. So think about that. Just one thing real quick. Are all these four functions, remember, the customer's journey happens through your company in this order. Are all these the same skill set? No, they're not the same skill set, not even close. Like maybe the accounting and lead generation function, they do have some similarities in the fact they track certain metrics. And the lead generation and the sales function, they do operate well with one another. And the sales and the operations, they have to communicate, right? So they know what was promised and what needs to be delivered. And the operations function, they have to communicate with all of them. So they know, like, hey, what's the product? What's the service? And this is what to bill, right? But they're not all the same skill set, not even close. And this is why when you have solopreneurs trying to do it all, they have nothing left in the tank to do all four of these functions. That's why many solopreneurs struggle. And especially and one of the easiest ones to outsource is probably the accounting function, because there's so many people that can do this and it's not that expensive. I mean, for a few $100s, you can get someone to do your bookkeeping for you. Okay. So let's look at this. Before we go on to that, I've seen there's some other questions. No sound. Check it. Well, I got a lot of people still here. So Sajith, are you good to go? Because I'm seeing people here that are still here. I'm assuming they would have left if there was no sound. I was just commenting, yes, please, about your comment that Amy might want to be drinking sangria. Okay. Yes, Amy may want to be drinking sangria on the beach for 2 months out of the year in Spain, right? Rubbing cocoa butter on her belly. So yes, Amy, that is very good. Marcus is saying I have sound. Sound is fine on my end. Okay, very good. All right. Sorry if you're having difficulties there. Thank you guys. All right, perfect. All right, so let us move on to the actual financial statements. So it was important for me, and I appreciate you guys hanging in there. I know I had to take a little bit of a time to get here, but I'm a strategist. I have to give context from a top-down perspective so you understand why the financial statements are really, really important. So what we're going to be looking at specifically, now there's multiple types of financial statements. We're going to do the basics right now. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the balance sheet, and we're going to be talking about the income statement. Sorry, the income statement or the P&L. Now, let me just tell you this. The income statement, the P&L, or the profit and loss. Has anybody ever heard of those financial statements? And you may be wondering what the difference is between an income statement, a P&L, or a profit and loss. There is no difference. The only difference is semantics. The only difference is we people in the accounting world tend to call like I'm an accounting purist, if you will. The income statement is more of an accounting term, but that's generally what I hear, what I hear CPAs use or other people. But I'm just saying P&L, profit and loss, income statement, they are all the same thing. All right. So I'm getting lots of yeses. So excellent. Thank you guys. So yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you all very much. All right. So this is if that's making sense for you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through each one of these sections here in terms of balance sheet and income statement and or P&L, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to get into a little bit of granular details on some of this. So strap in, take a deep breath. You can learn this. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Who out there, and just go ahead and write in the comments, who are my numbers people? You just can say either I'm a numbers person, I dig numbers, or I am not a numbers person, I'm allergic to them, right? Just go ahead. Like, I'm numbers person, not numbers person. Go ahead and put that in the comments, because here's the interesting thing. Regardless of whether you consider yourself, Amy is saying, okay, so you're saying me. Is that me as a numbers person? Numbers? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie's saying she is a numbers person. Say numbers person. Amy's saying, yes, I am. Okay. I'm assuming you're a numbers person. Excellent. Ayola, numbers person. All right. We got a lot. Not a numbers person. All right, Yvette, you're okay. You're like, listen, Yvette, I'm going to single you out for just a second. Thank you for being honest. And here's the thing. If you're not a numbers person, I'm with Steven. Haha. Steven's saying he's getting there. Okay. Listen, I consider myself weak with business accounts. All right, listen, here's the thing. Accounting isn't about numbers. Accounting is about rules. If you can play solitaire, if you can play Candyland, if you can play checkers, you understand enough to understand this. All this does is there's numbers that signify what has gone on. That's it. And this is going to be really easy for you. And I'm just going to show you what the rules are. Does that make sense for you? So I want you to set this aside and oh my gosh, but I failed my math classes and everything else. Okay, here you want to know something? I'm going to tell you something. I know I'm going to probably go a little long here. Here's the thing. In my high school, I graduated almost dead last in my class. Literally, I tell people that I was in the top 98% of my class, which if you do the math, it's the bottom 2%. But I was in the top 98% of my class because I literally failed everything with the exception of 2 classes that I had to pass plus PE, gym. And because I passed those classes, I was able to graduate. But my cumulative score was abysmal. But somehow I got into an accounting program and everything else, blah, 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 blah. But my point is that you don't have to understand numbers. If you can operate a 4-function calculator, add, subtract, multiply, and divide, you have all the knowledge that you need. Okay, so just want you to set that aside of that it's not going to be that difficult. Lovely way to present accounting. Yeah, it really is. It's not. It does not have to be. It doesn't have to be difficult. I hope to get into financial law. Excellent. And really, Joiza, that is not, I think I said it right. Joiza. It's really not that complex. It's really just understanding the rules of it, right? Lynn is a numbers person. Marcy is not a numbers person. That's okay. We're going to hold your hand. Not in a weird way. Like, we'll be socially distanced. All right. Maya, I'm going to call you Maya. Okay. Moyo, very good. Numbers person. Excellent. So this is what I want you to do. We're going to get into the balance sheet right now. Now, when you're looking at a balance sheet, I want you to think of this. A balance sheet is a snapshot in one moment in time for an organization. It also could be for you, but we're going to talk about this just to keep it nice and easy. We're going to be talking about an organization. Okay. A balance sheet measures 3 things. So in one moment in time, for one day in time, a balance sheet is going to measure your assets, which is what you own, which is what the business owns. the liabilities, which is what is owed to other people, and the equity, which is what is worth on paper. Okay. So keep in mind that what is worth on paper and what a company might sell for are two extremely different things. So I just want you to understand that what is owned are the assets, what is owed to other people are the liabilities, and the equity, which is the difference between the two. If you were to sell all the liabilities you sell all the assets, pay off all the liabilities, what is left would be the equity. Okay. And so it's really not that complex. And it lists all the balances of what are on those accounts. The income statement, on the other hand, or the P&L, profit and loss, whatever, so they're all the same thing. The income statement is over a period of time. So an income statement it could be for one day, which is a little weird. Like, hey, this was our income for today, and these are our expenses for today, right? And this is our profit for today. Like, you could do that, but generally it's over a period of time. So generally you might see them over 1 month. You could see them over 1 quarter. You could see them for 71 days if you want to run it that way, which is weird, but you can run it for any period of time you want. Okay. So understand that these capture also 3 things, and they are your revenues and sales, your expenses, which is the payments that you make. Okay. So that you're making payments, right? So if you might owe $50,000 in liabilities, but you're only paying out $500 a month, the expense would be $500. Okay. And then last, the revenues minus expenses is your net income. I'm going to go over all of this. So here we go. Strap in. This is not going to be difficult. I'm going to put myself down here at the bottom. So I'll get my shiny dome out of the way. This right here is a sample balance sheet. This is very, very simple. And we're going to walk through this line by line. Okay. You guys ready? This is the meat and potatoes of today's presentation. So at the very top, you're going to see the assets. In the middle section, you see the liabilities. Again, what the company owns, the assets, what the company owes out to others are the liabilities. And whatever's left over is the equity. Assets minus liabilities equals equity. So let's look at the top section, which are the assets. Okay, so you see the top. Okay, we're going to go to the top, which are the assets. So the assets are listed in order of liquidity. All right, so what does that mean? It means like what is the most easily convertible to cash? Well, the cash in a checking account is probably the most readily convertible to cash that there is, right? So you're maybe thinking, okay, this is $10,350. Now, let me just make a quick point here, because I know I got people all over our great earth on this call. What I'm showing you is what follows GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. These are universal. So even though these numbers are in dollars, they are universal. So just understand that what I'm showing you follows GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. So you will see this pretty universally. And the way these are listed, is in order of liquidity, from most liquid to least liquid. So let's look at the top number there. That's $10,350, which is what is in your checking account as of one moment in time. So let's say that at the end of December, here we are in January, at the end of December, on 12/31, you had $10,350 in cash. The accounts receivable is what is owed to you because you're selling on credit, right? So you have customers that have not paid their bill yet, and that they owe you collectively $101,275. You have vehicles which you own, okay? Again, I know this is a little basic, but hang in there for me, okay? Some of you might be thinking this is super basic. Some of you might be saying, I've never seen this before in my life, but hang in there. So the vehicle that you purchased maybe several years ago is a Ford van, and that's going to go on at what's called book value. So that's basically what is purchased for. I know that accumulated depreciation is not on here. That would be the amount that the vehicle gets depreciated over the course of its life. So just keep in mind, I'm trying to keep this simple. So just understand that that's what I'm showing you here. Real estate, let's say that you own a warehouse, and that warehouse you purchased for $275,500. Now, the total assets all added together would be $417,095. All right, so that's that. Now, that all, by the way, I excerpted this from the book that you'll see it on page 265 on the Time Wealthy Advantage if any of you have the book. But let's look at the liabilities. So we've got the total assets. Now look at the total liabilities. The total liabilities have our credit card balance. Again, these are from short-term assets all the way to longer term. Short-term liabilities all the way to longer term liabilities. So let's look at your credit card balance. Your credit card balance, say you owe Chase or whoever, whatever bank you may owe credit card debt to, $34,760. You owe your vendors $37,500. And those are people that maybe, or companies that you basically borrowed from, maybe to buy materials, raw materials from them. And you owe them. You owe them maybe for advertising or whatever. That's accounts payable. Okay, so remember, accounts receivable is what you own. Accounts payable is what you owe to others. And that's the balance. So you owe total amount, $37,500. You owe Wells Fargo for your van of $11,570, and you owe Citibank for the real estate mortgage of $105,350. And those are your total liabilities added up to $189,180. And your total equity is, again, your assets minus your liabilities, which equals your total equity. So again, that's everything related to your balance sheet, okay? Does anybody have any questions around this? Because it does not get more complex than this. I know you might see really complicated balance sheets out there, but the balance sheets are more complex just because there's more individual line items. But the premise really doesn't change much. There are more complicated things, like if you're looking at publicly traded companies, do they get more complicated? Yeah, they've got a lot more things to report, but the basic premise is still there. So I just want you to understand that this is a very typical format that you're going to see for any company. All right, so not seeing any questions, we're going to move on. So let's press on to the income statement. Remember, the income statement, the balance sheet's for one moment in time, let's say December 31st, okay? Now, let's look at the income statement, which is over a period of time. That could be from December 1st to December 31st. That was over that month, right? Or could be for the entire year, from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025. That could be for the entire year. All right. So let's look at your income statement, which again encompasses your revenues, your expenses, and your net income. So I'm going to get myself out of the way here so you guys can see this. So this is your income statement, or P&L, profit and loss, same thing. So at the very top, you're going to see your revenues. The middle section is your expenses, and the very bottom is your net income. Your sales minus your total expenses is your net income. So let's pretend that this is a monthly. We're going to pretend this is a monthly income statement. So December 1st to December 31st. Let's look at the top section, which is your revenues. So you're going to see product sales of $75,000. You have service sales of $39,000 for total sales of $114,000. You might be thinking, well, why are you breaking out your product sales from your service sales? It is important to break these out. And the reason why is because you may have different segments of your sales which are inherently more profitable. So you're going to want, like, for example, you may say, well, I know my product sales have significantly more margin, meaning I make more money and I get to keep more money by selling more products. So maybe I want to beef up my product sales. So that would be good for me to know that 65.8% of my product sales, or my total sales, are product. I'm sorry, let me slow down. It would be good for me to know that 65.8% of my total sales are from products, from the sales of products. That way I can manage those numbers a little bit better, right? So this will make sense here when we come back to managing based on a percentage of sales method. Percentage of sales method. That's what CFOs get paid big money to analyze, and that's what I'm going to be showing you here in about 10 minutes. So hang in there. So when you're looking at this, let me get myself back down in the corner here. When you're looking at this, the total amount of the sales here is 100% of 114,000. Service sales is 34.2% of 114,000, and product sales is 65.8% of 114,000. So that's important. We'll come back to that in a minute. In the middle and bottom sections here, you have your expenses and your net income. So your expenses, your raw materials, and this is the raw materials just could be, things that you buy. It could be, maybe you make things out of copper, maybe you make things out of material, whatever. That could be the raw materials that you spent in the month of December. So you sent out $34,000 in the month of December paying for raw materials. That's it. It's really not, that's the amount you spent. So if you've got insurance expense of $5,150, that's just you paying for your expenses during that month. That's it. It's just how you this is you paying your bills. You paid out interest of $2,450. You paid out commissions to your salespeople of $9,750. And then you got wage expense, which is $44,970. And most often, your biggest expense, it's going to be pretty rare that the biggest expense on your income statement is not wages. It almost always certainly wages and salaries, which is the biggest expense for most companies. So this is very, very common. So again, you'll also see the percentages off to the right there. We're going to come back to that in just a second. So I just want you to understand why that's important to manage. So the total expenses is $96,320 and your net income is $17,680. So that's the amount of money that you made in profit for the month of December. Okay. Any questions on the income statement? All right. So we've got a question. Stephanie is asking overhead costs liabilities. Can you be more specific with your question, Stephanie? So you're saying are overhead costs liabilities? I think that may be what you're asking. So if that is what you're asking, overhead might be things like rent. Overhead might be things like utilities. Those sorts of things that you might be liable for them. You are responsible to pay them, but they don't generally hit an income statement. Or I'm sorry, they don't generally hit a balance sheet. They hit an income statement. They are an expense. So in other words, the landlord comes by and says, hey, you owe me $5,000 for rent on your building today or for this month. Cool. I'm going to pay you $5,000, Mr. Landlord. That will show up as an expense on your income statement. It doesn't really hit your balance sheet because it's not really a true liability. All right. So I think that is maybe what you're asking. You're saying, okay. Okay. All right. Perfect. So when you're looking at overhead, especially if you're looking at overhead, now again, technically there's a lot of stuff on here that is overhead, right? Raw materials, part of overhead. But if you're looking at specifically like overhead for, like it just depends on what you're categorizing as overhead. You can categorize a lot of things as overhead. So if you're looking at like operational stuff versus overhead, I don't want to muddy the waters with that. Let's just keep it nice and simple. But if you're looking at true overhead for the like you might have operational expenses and you might have overhead expenses. Those could be two different classifications. So good question. Good question. All right. So let's get to asking the main question. Why does this matter? Why should I care? What does this have to do with the price of green beans? All right. Well, this does matter because like I said before, and when we're going to the financial statements, this is why you need to know the financial piece of this, because it collects the money, pays the bills. It allows you to be more strategic in making decisions. So you're not driving a speedboat in the fog. So this is where the rubber really meets the road. And this is where I want you to think about this when you might be thinking, holy crap, where is all my cash? Because I used to have a business that was growing like crazy, but I'd turn around and go, oh my gosh, where's all my cash going? I was making more money when it was just me. I was making more money and keeping more money when it was just me. Now I've got all these employees and everything else. And man, all of a sudden, all my cash is gone because I was growing. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but what was happening was I was growing broke. Now I'm going to demonstrate what that looks like. So when you're growth planning, you cannot be strategic if you don't know your numbers. If you don't know your financial numbers, it's impossible for you to be strategic because it's a really important component to growing. So this is again how you grow broke. So there's 3 key metrics I want you to stay plugged into. Number 1 is a profit margin percentage. Number 2 is a cash balance history. And number 3 is cash as a percentage of sales. We're going to start first and foremost by profit margin percentage. This is critical. This is really, really important to track your profit margin percentage, not just, oh, cool, I made money. And I'm going to show you why here in just a second. So when you're looking at your income statement, right? Remember, I'm gonna get myself out of the way here so you can see this. But if you're looking at this on the right-hand side, and I know some of you are on your phone, so you may have to go back and look at this when you're on a computer. But when you're looking at this number, I'm going to circle that column on the right-hand side. And what you're seeing here, and it's a little difficult to see, especially because I can see what the phone view looks like right now. But what I'm circling right now is the percentage of sales on the right-hand column. So what that means is every number on the income statement is divided by the total number of sales, the total amount of sales. So I took product sales divided by total sales. That's 65.8%. I took raw materials divided by total sales. That's 29.8%. I took insurance expense divided by total sales. You get the picture, right? Why is that important? Look, I'm going to explain this. The reason this is important is because as sales fluctuate, it's really going to be difficult for you to look at a number and go, oh, that's a good number or a bad number. Because guess what? All of the numbers will fluctuate. All of the numbers will fluctuate. But if you look at it as a percentage of sales methodology, now you can say, oh, well, my sales went up and my raw materials went up, but they actually, as from a percentage of sales, they actually went down. Okay? So in other words, let's say I had total sales of double, $228,000, okay? But my raw materials stayed at $34,000. That's going to be effectively now as a percentage of sales, my raw materials are at 15%, not 30%. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? That's really, really a great tool because now you can look at it in a way and go, oh, now I know how to track this. Now I know a methodology that I can use to track this again. So any questions of this? Because you might say, let me see here. Steven's saying, if you don't, you're going into debt really quickly. Not sure what you mean by that. Give me more context on that, Steven. So here's the thing. What I'm saying is when you're dividing those numbers out by a total amount of sales. So if I was looking at my numbers and trying to compare November to December and my sales, let's say my sales went up by, $10,000 and my raw material expense also went up by $10,000, right? I'm like, I don't know that that's good, right? That sounds like my raw material expense went up a lot faster as a percentage of sales than my total sales. So you have to be careful about this. That's why I really like using the percentage of sales as a method and a way to track from one to the next. So I know I'm getting a little advanced here, but I know some of you are like kind of thinking, okay, this is really important stuff, and this is how you do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you from the next piece here the income statement, and like I said, I've got this side here. I'm going to get myself put down. All right. So now we're looking at total sales of $114,000. All right. You've got your raw materials and expenses and everything else on the right-hand side, which you've got your percentage of sales method on the right-hand side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle that little number down at the bottom. You see that down there at the bottom, that 15.5%? That is my profit margin percentage. That means that $17,680 divided by $114,000 in sales means that I got to keep 15.5%, which is my profit margin percentage. That's my profit margin percentage. And that's the number that I want to be on like a Band-Aid. I want to track that number. Well, in fact, I want to track all my numbers well when it comes to percentage of sales, but that's the number I really want to be paying attention to. And that's going to help me from growing broke. Let me give you a quick example why that's so important. So let's say, for argument's sake, that I've got a company. Okay, can you guys see that? If I put myself there, all right. Yeah, I think you can see that. All right. So let's say I've got a company that makes $10 in sales over a period of time. Let's say it's in 1 month. I made $10 in revenues, and I have expenses of $8. Okay, so I pay out $8, and at the end of the month, I get to keep $2. My profit margin percentage is 20%. So I've got 20%, which is 2 divided by 10. That's my profit margin percentage. Now, let's pretend that we're in an inflationary environment. We just got out of an inflationary environment. And let's say, for argument's sake, that my expenses go up $1. They go up $1. So in order to maintain my net profit of $2, I raise my prices $1. Okay, so I'm going to show you this here in a second. So expenses go up $1, so expenses go to $9. Revenues go to $11, and I keep that same $2 in net profit. Okay, but here's the problem. I've made the same $2, but what happened to my profit margin percentage? That's right, it went down. My business is now less efficient at keeping dollars. And that is how you can grow broke. Because the revenues went up by the same amount of the expenses, but the problem is this, is that dollars aren't buying as much as they were previously. So because of inflation, I raised my expenses. My expenses went up $1, so I raised my pricing $1, and now my net profit, it might have stayed the same in dollars, but it's actually less as a percentage of sales. That is how you grow broke. So what would be the difference? Well, if I was going to keep my same net profit percentage, my profit margin percentage, I would have raised it by $1.20. So now I would have $11.20 minus $9 would be $2.20, which now I'm back to 20% in net profit margin. Now this is why what I just described to you is why companies have the biggest gains in periods of inflation, because especially stock market gains, they tend to do pretty well in periods of inflation because they can raise pricing. And guess what? Is anybody paying less than what they were paying for things prior to COVID? No, I know they're not, right? Because there was that period of hyperinflation that happened because there was so much excess liquidity in the market. So don't blame the corporations, this is what they do, right? This is exactly what they do. They manage their profit margin percentage. So this is what you should be doing. So if expenses are going up, this is what you need to be paying attention to. Say, okay, if I'm going to be going up and I want to maintain my profit margin percentage, I want to make sure that my company isn't growing broke. So I want to charge enough money to make sure I'm staying as efficient at keeping dollars. All right. Let's see. I've got a couple of people asking some questions here. Someone's saying if you don't, okay, you're going to get, sorry, I wasn't sure here. No questions. Okay, Alexander, you're good. Solopreneur here. I don't have a ton of loans or capital, largely self-founding to my business. Revenue is the lifeblood for me. Listen, lead generation and revenue is the lifeblood for any company. You are so true, Stephen. That is absolutely important. Amy, really appreciate this percentage of sales column and methodology. I'm telling you, I live and die by that. Anytime I'm looking at a company's financial statements, that's one of the main things that I look at. Amy, this is fantastic info and critically important. Excellent. It's my pleasure. Truly my pleasure. All right, let's keep moving. So we've got we got the last little piece here of the agenda, and I just want to make sure that we've got these two more functions that I want to give to you, and then I'm going to give you some more resources. When you're looking at profit margin percentage, that's what we talked about. And I will also talked about cash balance history and cash as a percentage of sales. So the cash balance history is not complex. It's literally tracking my cash balance. Where am I getting my cash balance history from? I'm getting my cash balance history from my balance sheet, right? So literally all I'm doing is I'm literally at the end of each month, I'm keeping it on a separate spreadsheet to know like, oh, my cash is going up. Why am I so obsessed about my cash balance going up? Most companies, especially most small companies, always struggle to have enough cash. It's just the way it is. And it doesn't need to be that way. For me, I am obsessed about making sure that my cash balance is always higher from one month to the next. Even if it means I delay paying bills, I will do that. Because I'm telling you, if you're not paying attention to your cash, it's not going to magically just take care of itself. So I track, and I don't mean like checking I check it every day. Okay, well, what was it 5 days ago to the penny? Do you know? Well, if you don't keep a track of it like this, you're not going to know. That's what I'm saying. The trend is what you need to be following. And I would say, fine, check it every day. That's fine. But put your final number down each month on a spreadsheet. That way you'll know from what is the trend. What is the trend from last January to today? Do you know? From 1 month to the next. And most people don't. And I'm not here to indict you. That's not my goal. That's not how I teach. That's not how I profess. That's not me. I don't shame anybody. If anything, I did this wrong way more and way worse than any of you on the call. I promise. I do. Right? Or I have in the past. But here's the thing. Once I changed this, all of a sudden I wound up with a lot more cash on my balance sheet and in my bank account. And that was what was really critical because I was tracking it. What you pay attention to is what expands. And this right here is a critical function that you need to be paying attention to. Okay. So I track my cash balance history. That is really, really important. Yes. Experience is a far better teacher. Failure for me is a much better teacher than success, because success is just a horrible teacher, but you learn a lot from your failures. All right. Let's see. Carolina is asking, can you do the cash flow statement too? Can you do the cash flow statement too? I'm not sure what you mean. Can I do, if you can be more specific, I'm not sure what context you were talking about there. So yeah, maybe be a little bit more specific in your question, Caroline. I apologize. I'm not really sure what you mean. So let's move on. So we talked about the profit margin percentage. We talked about cash balance history. And now we're talking about cash as a percentage of sales. So the cash as a percentage of sales is, this is going to involve two different financial statements in order to calculate this. But this is a really important metric that I track. And the reason I track this is because I want to see how much cash I have based on the amount of sales that I have. Okay, this will make sense here in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take myself down here, and you can see at the very top of my balance sheet. Remember, the balance sheet are the assets, the liabilities, and the equity. It's the balances of all my accounts. Okay, so what I'm going to go is I'm going to go to the balance sheet, and I'm going to take that number at the end of the month, of December, 12/31. It's $10,350. Okay, so I'm going to take that number, write that down. Now I'm going to go to my income statement. And I'm going to go to my revenues, my profits, or my revenues, expenses, and my net income. Okay. And now I'm going to take that total sales number of 114,000. Okay. Those are the two numbers that I'm going to divide out. And that's it. So when I'm looking at my cash as a percentage of sales, I'm going to divide the 10,000 by the 114,000. So $10,000 in cash divided by 114,000 in my monthly sales. So that means I only have 8.7% of my sales is in cash. Like that's the only amount of cash that I'm holding. I don't know what kind of business you're in, but man, that seems really low, right? Like that would be worrisome for me. For me, I like having multiples of that. I like having like 300 and 400%, because if my revenues went to zero next month, I would still have enough cash to carry me and pay and cover some of my expenses. So this seems really low. So what I would do is I would track that trend. So what I'm doing is I'd create a little spreadsheet again. Let me get myself down at the bottom so you can see it. But what I'd be doing is in January, my cash as a percentage of sales, 10,000 divided by 114,000 in sales is 8.7%. But look, you see the number going up, 9.2% in February, 11.3% in January, 11.3% in March. So the reason why that is so important is because I know my cash balance is going up, right? Because it's going up every month. I know it's going up, but keep in mind there's two numbers there. So that this percentage of sales method could be going up because my sales are declining, right? Or because my cash is going up. So you have to take it you have to take it in context. But this is the sort of stuff that I track, right? So listen, at the end of the day, if you guys have questions, go ahead and start typing your questions in, and I will stick around for a few minutes. But if you cannot be strategic if you don't know your numbers, and not knowing your numbers is a great way to grow broke. So just some success strategies here. I just want you to understand you got to know your numbers. There's just no way around that. And you got to be able to track your numbers. So this is where you have to have some discernment. I'm going to share a funny story with you guys as you guys are typing in your questions, but I know some of you have heard me tell this story before, but this is a photo of a guy who thought it was a good idea to rob banks in the greater Pittsburgh area. He and his partner in crime, and back in the mid-90s, they were robbing banks without any attempt to disguise themselves. And they had covered their faces with, of all things, lemon juice. And they were totally convinced that covering themselves in lemon juice would make them invisible to the bank cameras. I am not making this up. So much so, like they were shocked but that this happened. So these two researchers by the name of Dunning and Kruger, they said, we've got to research this, because there's no way that this is true. Well, it was absolutely true. And what you'll notice, and let me get myself off the screen here. what you'll notice here is there's a graph. And this is generally how false confidence plays a role for many of us, especially for business owners. And this is very, very true, especially ones who might be struggling. Well, all of us start here at the bottom, right? We have very low competence, meaning we don't know very much. We also have very low confidence, right? We haven't really started on anything. But generally when most people start, right? So you got competence on the bottom x-axis and confidence on the y-axis. But so generally when people start out, they're like, oh, this is going to be so easy. It can't be that hard. So their confidence goes really high, really fast. Okay, but even though they don't know very much, they're very confident in what they're doing. And because they get overly confident, they get to what's called the peak of Mount Stupid, okay, known affectionately. And then they start realizing they don't know what they don't know. They start realizing that this is going to be harder than they thought, and they come crashing down, realizing they don't know what they don't know, until they get down in the valley of despair, okay? But if they keep at it, and they keep building on their knowledge, and they start building more and more competence. They start up the slope of enlightenment until they finally reach the plateau of sustainability at the top. Okay, this is really, really important to have a support system. And that is why, again, I had mentioned earlier, if you guys are interested, you guys can join. Does not cost a thing. You guys can join the school community that I have and ask questions, stay in touch, and just eventually there will be a charge for it, but right now I don't have any plans to I want to keep the community nice and free for people who just kind of want to be in the same atmosphere. And when you're ready, if you're looking for something more, we can always talk about that. All right, so we've got some questions. Let's see here. Can you do the cash flow statement too? Okay. And you said go over it. Okay, go over the cash flow statement. So I'm going to be sending this out as a replay. I'm not really sure specifically what you're looking for, and that is buried back in a number of slides. So what I would suggest is when you get this on replay, the income statement is going to have, right? Remember, it's got revenues, expenses, and net profit at the bottom, and it covers over a period of time. So the revenues are what you sell during that period of time. Could be for 1 month, 1 year, whatever, right? 1 quarter. That's generally your revenues, and it's over that period of time. Your expenses are all the things that you pay out during that period of time. So it could be your raw materials that you bought during that period of time. It could be taxes that you paid. It could be your wages that you paid out during that period of time. So again, for that 1 month, that's what generally those expenses are. So anything that you maybe incurred but didn't pay out, that generally isn't an expense. That would wind up on the balance sheet as a payable or, something that's due, right? So I just want you to understand there are a difference. Really what the income statement does is it just tracks the money in and money out, right? So the money in is the sales and revenues. The money out is what's been paid, right? So, and then whatever's left over, hopefully there is something left over, that's the net income. So hopefully that helps you. But yeah, definitely go over, you will be getting a replay so you can go over that. All right. Caroline, I believe the cash balance statement would be ideally the same. Hold on a second. I believe the cash balance statement would ideally be the same in cash flow statement. Not really sure. So if you're talking about balance sheet and income statement, they're measuring different things. Remember, the balance sheet is measuring the assets, liabilities, and equity, the balances of those accounts. So your assets is what you own. The liabilities is what you owe, right? The balance. So the assets are the balance of what you owe, the balance of what you own. So it could be your cash balances. It could be your vehicles. It could be your real estate, things like that, right? The other side of this is what you owe to other people. And that would be the liabilities, right? That's the balance sheet. And then what the difference between the assets and the liabilities is your equity, right? That's basically what it's worth on paper. Your income statement or P&L, profit and loss, on the other hand, that's your revenues, your expenses, and your net income. So they're measuring two different things. All right. So hopefully that is more helpful for you. Let's see here. Edwald, how would you make calculation for volume times sale pricing? Try to balance this amount of sales, finding proper pricing for best profit. I struggle with finding the sweet spot, how to figure this out without much experimenting. Okay, so you probably, Edwald, what you're asking is actually not an accounting question. It's actually a marketing question, because your ability to price is really going to depend on how differentiated your product and service is in the mind of the customer. So how much you can charge is really more of a marketing question. I understand why you're asking it, but pricing really doesn't, it has very little to do with accounting. Most people do is they go, well, this is what it costs for me to produce my product. I'm going to charge just a little bit more than that. That makes no sense. I understand why you're doing it, because I've done that too. But what I'm saying is, if I was, let's say for argument's sake, that I could sell you something that would generate for you $10,000, no questions asked, right? Could I charge you $30,000 for it? I mean, no questions asked. You're going to guaranteed be making $10,000 a month on that. But you got to buy it for me for $30,000. Would it be worth $30,000 for you? Maybe you can't afford it, but even still, could it be worth it? You go, nope, he's guaranteeing it works, or I'm going to get my money back. Okay, yeah, I can make an argument that's worth 30. I can make an argument that's worth 100. I could probably make an argument that it might even be worth 200,000 if I really could say, hey, look, it's going to be 10,000 one month. I mean, at some point, there's a law of diminishing returns. The point is, what's the value in the mind of the client? What's the value in the mind of the customer? What's the problem that you're solving, and how much is that problem worth to your avatar? That's why it's important when you come to your core purpose that you're placing a value on them, and that in their mind, no one else can solve the problem like you can. So really what you're asking is more of a lead generation and marketing issue, not one based on accounting. So, but I do understand why you're asking the question. All right. Kay is saying, thank you for the session. Very helpful. Oh, it's my pleasure. And listen, I do appreciate the accolades. I do. And I know we're going a little long here, but here, tell me what you're incorporating, right? If you're going to connect with me on school, tell me what the plan is that you're going to change. What's going to be different for you tomorrow, right? Yvette, how do you figure percentage when you pay all expenses with a credit card and pay off the card every month? I like my airline points. That's great, Yvette, but you still have expenses. When you are swiping your card, okay, let's say that you go on a flight and that flight costs you $800. That $800 is still an expense, even though you pay it off every month, right? So in other words, your balance sheet is clean. You don't carry a balance, but you still have expenses. So even though you have expenses, right, even though you pay it off every month, your expenses are still the things that you buy. So in other words, when I look at your credit card statement, all of those things that are on there are expenses, right? Even though you go, yep, cool, I'm going to pay it off at the end of each month. Great. Your balance sheet is clean. You don't have a balance. But that over that period of time, over that period of that 1 month, all those things on there are expenses. Does that make sense? All right. So great question. I really appreciate that you bring that up, Yvette. Remember, this is about rules. So Marcy, the training has been very informative for me, considering I'm a new entrepreneur and have learned a lot. Excellent. Thank you. Asking, where will the replay be to follow through as I grow my business? So this is going to be on YouTube, but it'll also be sent to you via your email. So that will be sent to you. And you are saying, yes, a formula. Okay, I think if you're asking for a formula for like the pricing that I was talking about, there's really not a formula for that. It really does come down to it's a marketing question, not an accounting question. Because you could literally do a price plus formula, and that does not address the value in the mind of the client whatsoever. So for me, I used to follow this price plus model when I was like an accounting purist, and I'm like, nope, it is a marketing issue. Because again, think about this, like you buying a Tesla, right? I can guarantee you there were people that would have paid far more for it if they thought that they were doing better for the environment, because for them, the value is much higher. Okay. So you got to understand, this is why it's so important for you to understand your client avatar, like we talked about in the 3 C's of business vision. So good question. Sorry, this, Edwald, you said great answer. Thank you. Stephen, I'm sure this is more of a personal finance question, but do your books talk about thriftiness and spending strategies to minimize expenses? Honestly, Stephen, again, because our businesses are just an extension of us, this is really, I mean, you can't think that, well, let me make 50 grand a month and then I'll worry about my personal finances. most people, because especially people who have a bad relationship with money, are never going to get there. So I just want you to understand that side of things is really, really important to understand going into this. And you've got to work on something I didn't talk about today because there wasn't enough time. But when I take this S&P approach, the systems and psychology approach, S&P, there's systems, right, which is the Viper framework, and psychology, which is individual and personal psychology, and business and organizational psychology. So those two things are married. So if you're bringing to your business this horrific relationship with money, and you're not thrifty, and you just, you spend all sorts of money all the time, that's going to impact your business in a very meaningful way. So I just want you to understand that, yeah, you're right. It is a kind of a personal finance question, but it's also very related to business, very much so for solopreneurs. Okay. Edward, thanks. Great answer. Excellent. You are more than welcome. Edward, very helpful. My pleasure. And Alexander, thank you so much. All right. It looks like we covered all this. Put the fries in the bag right at 1 hour and 30 minutes and 35 seconds. Okay. And about 20 extra seconds in there where I had to reset my breaker. So thank you all for sticking around. You guys have been absolutely so much fun. Literally have been the best group I've had in quite some time. Thank you so much, very much. And I will see you guys in the boardroom. Take good care.